Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. The headset clicks into place with a soft hiss of suction, followed by complete darkness. My breath echoes in the black, a hollow sound like I'm standing in a cave rather than my apartment. Then, with a smooth fade-in, the world reshapes itself around me. Pine needles crunch beneath my boots. I look down. The boots are real, leather worn soft, muddy at the edges. I flex my hand, calloused fingers. I can feel wind against my cheek, smell pine sap and damp soil. The scent is so strong it stings the inside of my nose. A bird caws once in the distance, then falls silent. My heart beats faster, not from fear, from excitement. I've played hundreds of horror games, watched every low-budget VR short that dares to market itself too real to finish, and even subscribed to a private build testing forum for immersive horror sims. But nothing has ever been like this. Ahead of me, maybe 20 yards through the tree line, stands a cabin. Pinebrook Retreat, the menu had said. 1 bedroom, full immersion, customizable stay. The exterior is wrapped in a faded brown stain, logs stacked like vertebrae, with a wraparound porch that groans under the weight of an unseen breeze. Warm light spills from 2 of the 4 windows, flickering like a hearth fire. No wires, no HUD, no floating icons, just a place. As I walk toward it, I note the crunch of the soil, the subtle ache in my legs from what feels like a real hike. The closer I get, the more the environment reacts. Shadows from the trees stretch and lean, swaying in time with the wind. I test my voice. Hello? The sound is swallowed by the woods, then returned with a slight delay, like the trees need time to consider a response. It's eerie, but it works. Inside, the cabin is even more stunning. Floorboards creak beneath me with a satisfying realism. Dust motes hang in the air like suspended ash. To my left is a fireplace, its bricks chipped and blackened from long-forgotten use. A fire flickers inside, crackling softly. A cast-iron kettle hangs above it, steaming gently, giving off a vague scent of chamomile. To my right, there's a kitchen nook. Vintage appliances, mason jars full of dried herbs, and an old rotary phone mounted on the wall. The cord has been frayed and taped back together. I can see the ridges where someone's fingernails dug into the receiver. I reach out and touch the countertop. It's sticky, realistically sticky. Maple syrup? Blood? The game doesn't explain. The fridge hums behind me. I open it. Nothing but jars. Some filled with pickled eggs. Others, I can't tell. One of them has a cloudy fluid with something floating inside. It might be a rabbit fetus. I close it quickly and chuckle nervously. Nice touch. Further in, there's a small bedroom. The bed is made but lumpy. Something is under the sheets, just irregular enough to make me wonder if I should pull them back. I don't. Not yet. Instead, I backtrack into the main room and find a leather journal sitting on the coffee table. The cover is unmarked. When I flip it open, the first page simply reads, "You are not alone." I stare at that for a long time. There's nothing else written. The pages after it are blank, but feel warmed, as if recently handled. I hear footsteps above me, not the creak of settling wood, not wind, footsteps, deliberate, slow, one after the other, pacing. I freeze beneath them, head tilted up like prey under a tree stand. The ceiling looks stable, unbroken. I open the menu to check immersion settings, maybe to toggle on developer mode, maybe just to take a break. Nothing happens. No sound, no UI. I try again. Long press. Menu, I say aloud. Silence. Then something changes in the air. The fire dims. The shadows lengthen. My ears pop like pressure just dropped. And then, in the center of my vision, the words appear. Not floating, but burnt into the space behind my eyelids. Log out unavailable. You haven't completed the ritual. I stare at the message. It pulses, not like digital text, but like something breathing. I yank at the headset. Pain, a flash of white-hot pressure across the bridge of my nose. I gasp and stumble back, knocking over a chair. The cabin groans around me like it's listening, like it's aware. The fireplace cracks loudly, too loudly, and a log collapses into a pile of glowing ash. I need to calm down. I try to think logically. Maybe it's a scripted section, I whisper. Story lock. I've done these before. But then I notice the mirror. It stands against the far wall, full-length antique. Its edges are tarnished silver, blooming with rust. I hadn't seen it earlier. My reflection is wrong. My body is there, but my face is smeared, blurred like an oil painting left in the rain. No eyes, no mouth, just the suggestion of a face, twitching like a corrupted file. Behind me, the room in the reflection is slightly different. A second journal sits on the table in the mirror. A shadow lingers at the corner where the kitchen meets the hall. It doesn't move. It doesn't breathe. It just waits. I spin around. Nothing. The second journal isn't there. The shadow is gone. But the mirror, it's smiling. It doesn't have a mouth, but the cheekbones shift upward like it's pleased I noticed. A whisper seeps into the air, coming from the bedroom now. Page 42. No one speaks in this game but me. I edge toward the leather-bound journal, flip through blank, 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 until page 42. Scrawled in frantic ink, do not sleep, do not eat, do not speak to your reflection. The ritual begins at nightfall. Outside, the last of the sun disappears below the trees. And the moon doesn't rise. The fire had died to a dim, twitching glow, casting long fingers of shadow across the cabin floor. I hadn't moved in 10 minutes, maybe more. Just sitting on the couch, hunched forward, the journal open in my lap. Page 42 burned in my mind like a brand. Do not sleep, do not eat, do not speak to your reflection. The ritual begins at nightfall. I turn the page. Blank. Another. Still blank. The whisper, whoever or whatever had spoken, wasn't giving instructions anymore. I stood. Every joint felt heavy, like something was pressing down on me. Not fatigue exactly. Weight, gravity. a subtle change in the environment that made each movement harder than it should be. My breath fogged in the air, despite no noticeable drop in temperature. The fireplace shouldn't have gone cold. I moved to relight it. The lighter sat on the mantel where I'd left it. Standard, old-school steel Zippo. I flicked it open with my thumb and spun the flint. Nothing. I checked the fluid, full, tried again. Sparks, but no flame. I frowned and reached for the stack of chopped wood by the hearth. Gone. I backed away slowly. The chair I'd knocked over earlier was upright again. No sound, not even from the forest outside. No insects, no owls. Just the low hum of something unseen, like a power line buried deep beneath the cabin floor. I turned to the door. Maybe there was a reset trigger outside the sim, some failsafe built into the terrain. The handle wouldn't move, not stuck, not locked. It refused to move, like it was part of the wall now. I pressed my palm flat against the wood. Cold, not even a trace of residual heat from sunlight hours earlier. My heart thumped in my chest. I stepped back from the door. Then something moved behind it. Not a shape, not a shadow, just the faint creak of a porch floorboard, followed by another. Closer. I peered through the front window. The porch was empty, but the trees weren't right. I didn't notice it at first, but now that I was looking, I couldn't unsee it. The trees weren't just still. They were mirrored perfectly. Each branch had a twin, each pine needle, a symmetrical wall of trees, like a repeating texture pasted across a digital backdrop. And something stood in the center of them, tall, unmoving, covered in burlap or flesh, I couldn't tell. No eyes, just long arms hanging to its sides, staring directly at the cabin, directly at me. I stumbled back. The journal fluttered open again on its own, pages riffling as if caught in a sudden gust of wind that didn't touch anything else in the room. Then it stopped. Page 6. This time, new text had appeared, scratched into the page like it had been clawed into leather. The offering must be made. Leave the cabin. Follow the whisper. Find the stone. Spill your guilt. The fire reignited with a sudden roar, flames leaping 6 feet high. I fell back again, the heat licking at my skin. Real heat. I shielded my face and rolled to the side. When I looked back, the fire was normal again, crackling gently. No sign of the flare. It was like the sim was reacting to me, to my fear. I crawled toward the bedroom door. If I couldn't get out the front, maybe a window. I hadn't explored the back half of the cabin yet, and right now, I'd take any option over waiting for the ritual to begin. The hallway to the bedroom stretched longer than I remembered. Each step echoed now, like walking in a cathedral. The door was open, just a crack. I pushed it wider. Moonlight spilled in through the far window, but it was wrong. Too white, too harsh. It made the room look flattened, like a painting rendered in 2 tones, bone and ink. The bed was still made. The lump beneath the blanket was still there. But something new sat at the foot of the bed. A second journal, identical to the first. Same worn leather cover. No title. Just sitting there like it had always been waiting. I approached slowly. This time, When I opened the book, there was no preamble, just a hand-drawn map across the first 2 pages, sketched in rough charcoal. The outline was unmistakable. This cabin, the surrounding forest, and a winding trail leading northeast to a marked location. The offering stone. Underneath it, another note. You must carry your guilt. It must know your weight. The door to the closet creaked open by itself behind me. I spun around fast enough to nearly drop the book. Inside the closet, hanging neatly from a rusted hook, was a burlap sack, stained, tied shut with wire. Something inside squirmed faintly. The map vanished from the journal. Now the page simply said, "Take it." I reached out. The sack twitched. I pulled my hand back. Nope. Nope. But then a sound came from the kitchen. Not footsteps this time. Breathing, not mine. Low, raspy, wet. The window shattered. I screamed, dropped the journal, grabbed the sack, and ran. Through the hall, past the now empty fireplace, toward the kitchen. The back door was open, wide open. Fresh dirt tracked across the floor, boot prints that weren't mine. A whisper rose from every corner of the house at once. Follow the whisper, follow the whisper, follow the... I ran through the door. The woods outside were bathed in that same unnatural white light. Trees bending in odd angles, some upside down, some sideways, roots growing skyward. The physics engine of the game was broken, or worse, rewritten. I didn't care. I ran. I ran until I found the path. I followed it because it was there, because the sack twitched in my hand, because the game wouldn't let me log out. I don't remember when I started walking. At some point, I stopped running. Maybe when the path narrowed into a corridor of bone-pale birches, or when the sack in my hand grew warm and still. I remember looking up at the trees and realizing I couldn't see the sky anymore. Just blank whiteness, like someone forgot to render it. The forest around me didn't feel like it was outside the cabin anymore. It didn't feel like a simulation at all. It felt liminal, as if I was between two places that no longer existed. The trail was still there, but wrong in small ways. It shifted underfoot, subtly rearranging itself every few dozen paces. Tree roots that hadn't been there before, stones with strange swirling carvings. Once, I swear, I saw my own footprints cross the path ahead of me, moving the opposite direction. I kept going, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what else to do. The sack was growing heavier. It hadn't been more than a few pounds when I picked it up, but now it dragged at my shoulder like it was filled with wet concrete. I didn't look inside. I didn't want to. The texture had changed. It was slick now, like the burlap had absorbed something oily, something that had body temperature. I tried to drop it. My fingers wouldn't let go, not like they were stuck, but like my will couldn't override the motion, like I was no longer in complete control of my body. I told myself it was just a VR lock, a scripted event. I said it out loud, just to hear a voice that was still mine. Scripted, just part of the story. My voice didn't echo. It didn't register, like the world wasn't listening anymore. Then, after maybe half an hour of walking, Time was impossible to track out here. I saw it, the stone, exactly like the map had drawn it, 10 feet tall, rough and gnarled like something uprooted from the ocean floor. Black moss clung to its face in the shape of hands. Thin cracks ran across its surface, pulsating with a deep red glow from within, like a heartbeat buried in stone. Carved into the ground in front of it was a circle, simple, precise, just wide enough for one person to kneel. There were scratch marks along the edges, long, frantic, some still fresh. The journal's words repeated in my head. You must carry your guilt. It must know your weight. I stepped into the circle. As soon as my foot crossed the boundary, the trees stopped moving. The wind died. The red glow in the cracks intensified. I lowered the sack. It fought me. No movement, just a resistance, like I was trying to press two magnets together the wrong way. But I forced it down, set it at the base of the stone, and waited. Nothing happened. A minute passed, maybe two. Then I heard it. My voice from the other side of the stone, not echoing, speaking. Why did you leave her? I froze. The trees didn't move. The sky didn't change. The question just hung there. Why did you leave her? The voice repeated. It wasn't a game line. It wasn't one of the narrator prompts like some horror sims used. It was my voice. And the question, it hit deep, too deep. The stone cracked further. I turned to run, but the forest was gone. There was only cabin wall behind me, endless, seamless wooden wall, stretched out in both directions. No door, no windows, just that blank oppressive wood. I turned back to the stone. The sack was gone. In its place stood a figure, my height, my building, same clothes, head tilted downward, breathing raggedly. I stepped forward. The figure mirrored the motion. I raised my hand. It didn't. It looked up. Its face was mine, but wrong, like a scan of my face that had been run through a meat grinder. Lips in the wrong place, one eye bulging, the other absent, skin sloughing off like clay in the rain. But it was me. It took a step forward. Why did you leave her? It whispered. I backed away. I don't know what this is, I said. I never left anyone. I didn't. But the cabin wall behind me was gone, and I was inside the cabin again, exactly where I started, standing in front of the mirror. Except this time, my reflection was gone. The room looked normal. Same fire, same furniture. But the reflection showed an empty cabin. No me, no journal, no sack, just the walls, the fire. And then the reflection moved. Something stepped into view from the right side of the mirror. A figure, same one from the forest. The not me. It walked behind the couch, then stopped, turned. It stared directly into the mirror, even though I wasn't in it. And then it smiled. My body screamed at me to run, but my legs locked. My head throbbed like a migraine was blooming behind my eyes. The air was thick with heat, smoke, burning wood. No. The fire was out. There was no fire anymore. The light in the room came only from the mirror now, and then from behind me. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. I turned. It was me, standing in the flesh. Not a reflection, not a glitch, not code. Me, but something ancient in my skin. It opened its mouth, and in my voice it whispered, "You were always here." I don't remember blacking out, but I must have, because when I opened my eyes, I was in the cabin again, back on the couch, fire crackling softly in the hearth. Daylight spilled through the front windows, soft and warm, the same kind of light I'd seen when I first arrived. At first, I thought the simulation had restarted, that maybe I'd died in the sim and respawned back at the last checkpoint. But that hope was short-lived, because something was off. The journal was still on the coffee table, open to the first page. "You are not alone." The same words, but now the ink was faded, like it had been sitting there for a long, long time. I stood slowly. My body moved fine. No resistance, no pain, just a quiet, hollow sensation, like I'd slept too long and missed something important. The cabin was pristine. The broken window was whole again. The kitchen spotless. No sack, no second journal, no blood. I walked to the front door. The knob turned without effort. The door opened. Outside, birds chirped. Wind danced through the trees. The sky was a cloudless blue. I stepped onto the porch. Everything looked right, but it didn't feel right. The trees no longer mirrored each other. The woods were wild again, realistic. There were tire tracks in the dirt, fresh ones, like someone had just been dropped off. And then I heard it, a car engine fading into the distance, the crunch of gravel under tires, and footsteps approaching the cabin. I ducked back inside and peered through the front window. A man, mid-30s, backpack slung over one shoulder, walked up the path. Casual, relaxed, excited. He paused in front of the porch, pulled a pair of VR gloves tighter over his hands, then looked up at the cabin. I recognized the expression on his face, that first-timer awe, that thrill of immersion. He didn't knock, just stepped inside like it belonged to him now. "Hello," he called out. "Anyone home?" Weird, it said it was single player. He looked straight at me. No reaction. Walked past me like I wasn't even there. I reached out, shouted. Nothing. He moved through the cabin, chuckling to himself, narrating like a YouTuber doing a Let's Play. I followed him. My footsteps made no sound. In the kitchen, he opened the fridge, commented on the jars, said something about the smell being next-level realism. I screamed again, but the sound didn't leave my throat, like trying to speak in a dream. He wandered down the hall, into the bedroom. I followed him, helpless. He reached the closet. The burlap sack was there again. I hadn't noticed it return. I didn't know when it had, but it sat in the same place, tied with wire, twitching gently. The man hesitated, picked it up, and as he turned to leave, he paused in front of the mirror. For a moment, he frowned. "What the hell?" he muttered. His reflection didn't follow. Instead, the mirror showed me, standing behind him, watching. I tried to move, to scream, anything. His eyes widened. He turned to face me, except I was gone from the room, only visible in the reflection. And then he screamed. The cabin shook. The lights dimmed. The sack burst open in his hands, spilling something wet and red onto the floorboards. I stood in the mirror, still, silent, not in control of my body, not anymore. A voice, calm and low, whispered in the walls, "The ritual begins again." I don't know how long I've been here. Days, weeks. There's no clock, no hunger, no sleep. Just the cabin. The fire resets every morning. The journals restock themselves. The sack returns to the closet. Sometimes I hear footsteps on the roof again. Sometimes the reflection comes back, but it's not me anymore. It's someone else. Someone who failed. Someone who replaced the last player. Someone who did what I did. There's only one way out. A new guest. A new sacrifice. Until then, I wait and watch and smile.